Thank you to people who got up early in Australia. And if you're listening on the podcast, welcome back. My name's Steve Mascord. This is White Line Fever. Don't forget to subscribe and look at the show notes and all that sort of stuff. I want to welcome our guest, John Corabi. John, how are you, mate?
I'm all right, buddy. How are you?
We're doing our best. We're doing our best, mate. We're here to talk about Cossie Bella, the new single you put out. And I guess this is all very DIY. And this is kind of like you almost retrained yourself during lockdown from listening to some of the other interviews. You learned how to use Pro Tools. You wrote a book and you pretty much put this song together yourself.
Well, I can't say myself. I did have Marty Fredrickson at the helm, but you know, with the COVID thing hit, you know, I had already been in the studio with Marty starting some songs, and obviously it was like, you know, everybody just go home, stay home, don't, you know. So he went to Florida. I was here, and I was kind of, to be honest with you, I was kind of panicked about it. I'm just sitting there like, wow, you know, and it made me rethink everything. Like, you know, in this day and age of the music industry, it made me rethink and go, wow, like more than 90% of my income comes from live shows. Mm-hmm. Then I started kicking myself in the arse because I was like, all these records I've done in the past, I never really sat behind the board and figured out how everything works. So I told my wife, I'm like, man, you know, if I would have been smart back in the day and learned how to use Pro Tools, I could at least navigated my way through this non-working situation and just been recording anything, like new original music, cover songs, whatever, and put them up on a website or something for people to download and maybe soften the blow a little bit. But anyway, I no sooner said it, I got an ad on my Instagram. It was like, learn to use Pro Tools. So I called them up. I took the classes. I bought the stuff that I need. And now I'm still a bit of a caveman with it. It takes me probably a couple of days to do something Marty could do in 10 minutes. But at least I'm here in my house, in the safety of my own house. I'm recording music, and then I get it as far as I can take it, and I email everything to Marty, and then he sprinkles his magic fairy dust on it, makes it sound like I knew what I was doing.
It's funny because as someone who writes, I did the same thing, tried to learn how to use Adobe InDesign during lockdown so I could publish myself, you know what I mean? Do you think we'll ever go back now? You know, we've learned to do so many things ourselves. Is there no turning back from this, or do you think if there will be a time when we do get other people in and we forget the skills we learned during this period?
No, you know what? I think for the most part, I'm kind of digging, even though for me, again, it's a slow process, but I'm kind of digging the fact that I am my own record label. I'm recording my own stuff. And then even the video that I did for Cossie Bella, I was saying to a friend, I'm like, I want to learn how to do the videos too. I want to, you know, I don't want to, I was kind of at a point where I realized during COVID how much we rely on other people to help us do whatever it is that we want to do. So I just wanted to be more self-sufficient, self-reliant, and knock some stuff out. And it was weird. Like I'm still figuring stuff out. Like even the video though, I was calling some friends. I'm like, hey, I want to do a video. What kind of a camera do I need? What kind of an editing? And you know, and it's funny, this friend of mine here in Nashville, he said, you don't need a camera, dude. Just go get either an iPhone 11 or 12. And he goes, because they're the pixels and the high definition, it's all like, so my last video that we did, me and a friend of mine, Chris Romero, we shot the video with 2 iPhones and then gave it to another friend of mine who actually edited the whole thing from his house. We were never never in the same room together. We just kind of filmed it and then sent the, stuff off to this buddy of mine in Denver, and he edited it and sent it back. So I'm kind of digging it. The only thing I don't dig is now, like, for example, today, my day consists of having a couple cups of coffee, then knock out these interviews. Then I have to go get my coach together because I'm playing shows this weekend. Then I have to go into the studio, finish the guitar parts that I want to do, send them off to Marty to make sure he fairy dusts everything. And then I have to start planning. So like, I kind of bit off a little more than I could chew because now I'm wearing all the hats. I'm the video director, the engineer, I'm the producer. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah. And then it's just been crazy, but hence the slow moving process. But I like it. It's freedom.
It's fun to learn all these other skills, isn't it? And I guess, but the trick is to know your limitations, where I'm still pretty crap at that. And I can't really put that out in the public. I'll get someone else to do it. And then down the track, I might be better at it. You know what I mean? What is, and with that suggestion, with me putting that out there, what is the plans for new music? You're just going to keep putting out singles?
For now. I mean, eventually I do want to do some vinyl and some CDs. But you know, it's weird. Marty Fredrickson was the one that really kind of enlightened me and made me think. Like, he was asking me, he goes, why are you doing a record? Like, nobody's buying records. I mean, it's funny now, since I put Cossie Bella out, everybody's writing to me. They're like, dude, I buy records. And I'm like, well, that's great. But that percentage of people that do that is so small now. Mm. Everybody has their phone, like what I'm talking to you on. The phone is like the computer. Like, I can do Zoom calls. I can listen to music. I can stream music. I can buy music. So that's what everybody's doing. So he made me aware of it. And he even said, he goes, in the last 10 years, where have you sold the majority of your records? And I said, well, either on my website, Amazon, or at my shows. So he goes, nothing changes. Just do the video, do a song and a video, let it sit, do all your press. And he goes, now what's happening is the streaming world has kind of stepped in and become modern day radio. So that's where people hear the song and they go, oh, that's really cool. And then they go find it and they download it and they put it on their phone. So I don't know if this is the right way or the wrong way, but this is how I'm doing it. So I would like to do 3, 4, 5 songs and videos while I'm getting the rest of the record together. And then at some point go online and say, record's done, here it is. It's available on my website, Amazon, or at the shows.
Corabi, John, you mentioned about everyone playing now. Obviously, they don't buy physical records and they don't do records. And in another interview, you mentioned Kiss and Aerosmith probably never going to do another record. But Bruce Kulick did come to you and suggest a new Union record. Did you have to kind of have this conversation with him about that's not the era we're in anymore, Bruce, or did it not come down to that?
No, the thing of it is with Union, a lot of people have asked me about that lately. We never really split up. We were just, we were trying to carve our little niche out of the music industry. And Bruce got offered, if I can be blunt, a better paying gig with Grand Funk Railroad. So he got that. I got offered a better paying gig with Rat. And James and Brent got offered a better paying gig with Vince Neil, oddly enough. So we never split up. We're all still great friends. And there was talk of us. We started talking a couple years back where it was like, hey, let's get together and maybe do some shows, or let's do a record. And I was like, you know what? I don't really want to. I'm not against doing a couple of new songs, but I don't really see the point in trying to get money from a record label and spending, you know, a month or whatever trying to write songs and put them out there when we don't actually know what the climate is on Union. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Let's go do the shows, and if we have a great turnout, then I'd be okay with releasing a couple of songs and do it the way that I'm doing it now. I just think that things have changed so much that this is why Gene Simmons made that comment a couple of years ago, like, you know, rock is dead. And it's not so much about the fans, because the fans are going to the shows. It's just the method of how they acquire their new music. That's drastically changed. There's no radio. There's no MTV. There's really, like I said earlier, the Virgin Records and the Tower Records and all the mom and pop record stores are few and far between or gone. So now it's about streaming and it's about downloads. So we're all, you know, all us old guys are figuring it out as we go. You know what I mean?
You know, you're doing a lot of these Zoom interviews at the moment. It's hard to come up with questions yet and not being asked by everybody else. But one thing I think everyone asks you about this sort of Motley Crue thing. I know you've got a book coming up with a fantastic title, Horseshoes and Hand Grenades, which was inspired by your dad. But everyone asks you about the inner workings of Motley Crue. And I don't really know much about the inner workings of the Dead Daisies. You know, like it seems to me like it's kind of a rock and roll startup with, you know, a guy who's got resources. And maybe it's just starting to break even, you know, as a rock and roll startup. I don't know. But how does the Dead Daisies work? How would you explain it? How do you explain it to your friends when they ask you, what is this band that you were in? You know, and might be in again.
Honestly, it was a great band. You know, I have to give credit where credit is due. You know, David Lowy was always, and you're obviously being from Australia, you're very familiar with David Lowy's history. And he's always been kind of a closet guitar player. He's an incredibly smart businessman. And he had done a few bands in Australia and decided that he was going to assemble, you know, a great band on paper. So, you know, initially it was John Stevens and Dizzy Reed and Richard Fortas and Brian Tishy and Marco Mendoza. And they went out and they made some noise. You know what I mean? For apparent, obviously, again, I don't have to fill you in with John, who I adore. I think John's vocals are insane, John Stevens. But he had some issues back in 2014-15 that he had to take care of. And so they asked me to join. And when I got in there, I was like, wow, you know, this is a great band. And we did a record and it just started blowing up. It just, you know, it was crazy. I think the smart thing that David does is he assembled a team of people that are masters of social media marketing. And they are on there all the time. And it was funny, even when I left the band and I started doing my own thing, even my wife was like, I know you're not a big social media guy, but you really need to take a look at the playbook that the Dead Daisies are using and somehow figure out how to incorporate that into John Corabi's world. And I have to admit, like, I'm not the kind of guy that's like, I can't, I think the last Instagram or Facebook Live that I did was the day I was shooting the video for Cossie Bella. And it's weird because I just don't think about things like, sorry, plane.
All right.
I just don't think about things in the context that David's team does. Like I sit in my recording studio while I'm piecing together a song, and I'll get all done and I'll be shutting it down, and my wife will come into the room and she'll hear the song and she's like, wow, what a great song. Did you film any of it to put online? And I'm like, no, actually I didn't. She's like, ah, dude, that's what you know, people want to see that stuff. But think of like, I don't know. I have to go back and I have to reread the Dead Daisies playbook, because I tend to think of myself as not really that interesting. Do you know what I mean? Like, are the fans really going to give a shit about what I'm doing? You know what I mean? But apparently they do. You know what I mean? It's funny. So, but that's why they're so successful, because David assembled a nice team of people that are just on there filming. They're on all the different social media sites. You know, they're just awesome at it.
Two things. What do you think success is for them? I know I'm talking about Dead Daisies the way people normally hit you about Motley Crue, but what do you think? What do you think success is for the Dead Daisies? You know, really, is it selling records? Is it packing venues? And obviously they started from a low base and no one knew who they were. And secondly, and this is another thing the other interviewers aren't asking you about, but I will, about doing a duet with Jimmy Barnes. You know, I'm really interested to hear about that experience.
Well, you know, success is in the eyes of the beholder. David still has his, you know, I gotta tell you this, like, it used to irritate me that people would indirectly slag the Daisies on the fact that it was like, you know, I'd see comments like, oh, it's just some billionaire's hobby, or just, you know, he doesn't give, you know what I mean? And I look at it like David still has the time to do all the business things that he needs to do. But he gets to go into the studio and write and contribute, which he does. I can tell you right now, the song Long Way to Go, that was David Lowy's riff. Like he came in with this riff and it was like, and it's a great song. So he's a contributor. He's not buying his way. He's not paying people to write good songs for him. He's contributing. He's involved. You know, so success to him is being able to walk on stage as we did at a place like the Polish Woodstock Festival in front of 200,000 people and play all of our music with a 50-piece orchestra and walk off stage knowing that 2 hours we gave the audience was awesome. So he's one of these incredibly brilliant people that knows how he can compartmentalize everything. It's like, I've never seen anybody work as hard as he does. Like we would literally do a show, go back to the hotel, and as we were walking into the hotel, he would say, hey, Crab, do you want to go get a cocktail? Okay, sure. We'd go to the bar and I'd have a couple of whiskeys. He'd have his, you know, vodka or martini or whatever. And then he would go upstairs and literally go to sleep for maybe 2 hours. And then he'd be up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, calling Japan and calling Israel and calling, you know, Australia from wherever, and handling his business, then go back to sleep for a couple more hours. And then we were off all day doing interviews and press and meet and greets and all this stuff, do the show, rinse and repeat every day. So he's able to compartmentalize the business part, and he still gets to live his dream of walking on stage and playing music that he had a hand in writing, and rock out. I'm like, how fucking awesome is that? That's pretty awesome, because most musicians wish that they had some sort of business savvy to be able to make money on the side from the real gig. And most business people look at musicians and go, God, I would love nothing more than to be able to go out and party with a bunch of rock stars and just live that gypsy bohemian lifestyle. He's able to do it all. So I think he's brilliant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, a really long answer. That's 10 minutes of your life you're never getting back.
It was a great answer. It was a great answer. And what's more, I think I sort of came to the realization at one point that a lot of the people criticizing him would do exactly the same thing if given the opportunity. So
it's like, if you could go to work and do whatever you do, and if you wanted to be, you wanted to be on a, World Cup, soccer team or rugby team, or you wanted to be a race car driver. But if you could go to work and do your job and then do that and also be successful at that, who wouldn't want to do that? You know what I mean? And he gets to, and he gets to live what I really feel is kind of the perfect life. He's got both, and he's able to compartmentalize everything and be really good at both things. So that's I got to take my hats off to a guy like that.
Yeah, I might lead you with the next song, because I also asked you about Empty Heart with Jimmy Barnes. Can you talk a little bit about recording that and about the song and about Jimmy, and then maybe we'll listen to the song if you're listening on the podcast.
Yeah, it was, that came about because when we went to, we recorded the first record I did with the guys in Sydney. And unfortunately, for some weird reason, I don't recall why, but Brian Tishy, who was our drummer at the time, was not able to make the recording sessions. Sorry, I apologize about the planes. But so David knew Jimmy, and I guess we had Jackie Barnes. He made a phone call, and we had Jackie Barnes play on the Revolution record. At which point, Jimmy was in another studio down the hall, and he would just pop in. And Jimmy, I mean, he's full of energy and very jovial and just a funny guy. So he would come in and he would harass Jackie and then us, and then, but he was kind of listening to where we were going with our music. And he came into the studio one day and he goes, "Hey, I got a couple tracks here that I wrote that I'd love for you guys to check out." And we listened to both tracks, and everybody just across the board said, "Empty Heart. It's such a great song." And then David actually asked Jimmy if he would want to do a duet with me. And I got to be honest with you, like at that point, I didn't really know much about Jimmy Barnes. Like I was like, I wasn't familiar with Cold Chisel or any of that stuff. And then he came into the studio, we laid the track down, and Jimmy started singing. And I was like, what? Like, this guy's insane singer. So he sang the song all the way through. And then I sang the song all the way through. And we just took the best, like he did the first verse, I did the second verse. We did the choruses together. And then at the end, we just kind of traded off and on. But what a voice. Like, and then it was funny. I came home to Nashville, and I was playing some of my friends, some of the tracks. And I was surprised. I was like, I felt like I'm the dumbass because I came home and I said, oh yeah, we did this song with a guy from Australia named Jimmy Barnes. And all my Nashville friends are like, oh, fuck, are you kidding me? Jimmy Barnes? You sang a song with Jimmy Barnes? And I'm like, yeah. Do you know him? Yeah, I love Cold Chisel. I love this. I love that. So, I get to wear the dunce cap for that one because I had no idea who Jimmy was. But what a great song. We actually recorded it together. It was a blast hanging out with him. Actually, I just wrote to Jackie. It was his anniversary the other day. So I just wrote to him. So we've managed to stay in touch. And what a bloke. I mean, that guy can sing the phone book and it would be awesome. You know what I mean?
Of course, Jackie was on the Monsters of Rock cruise, wasn't he, too, with the Tats? We're going to go to listeners and viewers' questions for John Corabi. We've got Gina Mitchell. I've just opened up Facebook here. John's voice. I'm in awe when he sings. Did he take lessons at a young age? And one more. What kind, brand of whiskey does he like? There we go.
Okay, so my go-to, now some people have given me shit for drinking Jameson. But the reason why I drink Jameson is because across the board, for some weird reason, I've been to Australia, I can go to Japan, I can go to pretty much anywhere, and I can walk up to the bar and I can go, what kind of whiskey do you have? And they'll go through all the thing, and the one constant is Jameson. I can get it anywhere. So I do like my Jameson, although I will say this, I may have a drinking problem because I'll drink any type of whiskey that has a cube in it. Okay, so we're done with that question. Next thing, actually, as far as vocal lessons, no, I've never really had any vocal lessons. I don't know if I'm singing properly or improperly. I did take a thing. I took some. It wasn't to teach me how to sing. It was basically I took a quick class on how to warm up and warm down. But that's pretty much the extent of my vocal thing. My vocal lessons were listening to Robert Plant and Steven Tyler and Paul McCartney and just trying to mimic them.
Okay, I've got another question, but before I ask it, your look is new. It's a little different from the cruise days. Has anyone told you look like Robert Plant now? Is it being said?
No. You know what's funny? You know what's funny, and I'll give you a very quick rundown. It's kind of funny. So a couple of months ago, maybe about 6 months ago, I don't understand the fans at times, but this fan wrote to me and he took an old photo of me from the Scream and he put it side by side with a photo of me from like a year ago where my beard was a little gray and I had some gray in my hair. And he just wrote me this email and he wrote, dude, what happened? And I'm like, oh. So it's funny. So I just sat there and I went, okay, I'm going to take a moment and respond to this guy. And so I wrote back to him. I'm like, dude, life happened. That first picture is from 30 years ago. So I just said, you know what? I told my wife, she's a hairdresser. I just said, no more hair dye. No more trying to cover up the fact that, you know what I mean? Because I guess, you know, from a vanity point of view, most musicians, they dye their beards, they dye their hair, they dye their eyebrows, they dye all this shit. And I just kind of sat there and I went, you know what? I'm 62 years old now. I'm in relatively good shape. I still have my hair. So I'm not going to dye it anymore. this is John Corabi at 62, and I'm fully embracing it because this is what we do as humans. We get older.
Indeed, indeed.
And now the, you know, Robert Plant thing, I'll take that as a compliment, hopefully.
Okay, Alex we've only got two more questions, mate. I'll let you go. Alex Pompili says, you recently asked Billy Gibbons to play a solo, in one of your next songs. What can you tell us about it? Thanks, boss.
Alex, I love him to death. Alex is the administrator for John Corabi Italia site. Oh. So no, I don't know. Like I have to send Billy the track. I just ran into Billy Gibbons at a Guitar Center. And I have this very kind of old school, it's bluesy, but it's got elements of a little bit of R&B in it. But I wrote a song called I Don't Need Anything. And it's got, like I said, it's bluesy, a little bit of R&B, maybe a little reminiscent of like an Otis Redding kind of a thing. So I just saw Billy at a Guitar Center here in Nashville. And I just walked up to him and I said, hey, Billy, how are you? We had met each other earlier, probably 5 or 10 years before that. And I reminded him that we met each other. And I just said, hey, man, I don't know what it would cost financially, but I would love to have you play a guitar solo on this blues track that I have. And he was kind of checking out guitars. He goes, yeah, okay, just send me the track, whatever. And I've got a friend, a mutual friend that used to be their tour manager. So I'm going to send him the track and then have him reiterate to Billy, like, hey, could you play guitar on this for me? I don't know if he'll do it. I'm not sure. It's just wishful thinking at this point.
Okay, one more question. Petra Desiree or Desire? Desiree? She says, she said, I know it's still crazy and tough to tour around the world because of the different COVID rules, but are there any plans to tour Europe, Germany next year, 2022? And will you bring your band, including your son Ian, over with you? We would love to see a full electric John Corabi show.
That is my ultimate goal, is to hopefully by 2022, everybody will, I don't know how we're going to get through it, because every time we get through one part of COVID, there's some other strain that follows the one that we just got through. And, so I don't know how this is going to play out, but I would love nothing more than to put 2, 3, 4 new songs out and then go to Europe, go just everywhere. Anywhere I can plug in an amp, I would love to be able to go and play full band electric, do a little bit of the Scream, do a little bit of the Motley stuff, the Union stuff, maybe even some Dead Daisies stuff and some new stuff, and give people an evening with John Corabi where we cover all the bases and just go out and have a good time and listen to live music again. I would love nothing more than that. So,
well, now that you're filling my screen and I'm not looking at Facebook, you look a lot younger than Robert Plant. There's no comparison at all. Let's finish. Let's